Alright my friends, welcome to the secret history living in your aquarium. Today we're going to be doing a 4-month update on the Aquatic Arts breeder pack. Now, some tragedy befell our breeder pack and it ended up being half the size of normal due to a power outage and some very unseasonably cold weather. However, in 4 months we have raised over a dozen snails that I'm working on that can be sold. We've got 50 shrimp up from 8 we started with, and we're growing out over 30 little bettas as well as some gourami and danios in here for pest control and also so they can just graze all day long. On top of all of that, it was all in a kit that cost me around $100 plus a $7.50 light plus some substrate plus some crushed coral that was free. You could also use eggshells. And then I chose to use an expensive plant, Cabamba fricata, for reasons we'll talk about soon. But it's mostly so it's a quick growing plant, it eats up nitrates, and I can make my money back. So just how much money can you make off a filterless, no heater, not even light needed? You could put this in the windowsill if you had a sunny window and temperatures in your room somewhere between 65 and 80 degrees year-round. You could have literally no electricity going to your tank and replicate what I have going on here with these baby fish and these shrimp. First, we're going to talk about just keeping shrimp in a little 2.5 gallon tank and how the update's gone. And then we're going to talk about the pest control slash high-speed grow out that we're going to get going and achieve with the fish in this tank also, and the plants and the snails and the botanicals. It's going to be a whole thing. You guys are going to get discount codes to do it yourself, and I want to see if any of you guys have done this or can do this also. I'd love to hear about it. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about all of it, and let's enter the secret history living in your aquarium, or today the science living in your 2.5 gallon no-tech setup. Alright, so let's start with the shrimp. So I set up the tank, and with the breeder pack, like I said, I ended up with getting a 2-to-1 ratio of females to males. I was able to get 10 beautiful adult female shrimp and 5 male shrimp of good quality. Unfortunately, there was a power outage when it was 15 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and I lost them. So we're going to pretend like I didn't even have the full breeder pack that Aquatic Arts sends. That pack came with the cholla wood, it came with a couple pieces, it came with lots of plants, and a year's worth of 3 different kinds of food for your shrimp. And that's assuming you're feeding them in a tank where you're cleaning the tank and it has a filter and all that. In this style of setup, this low-tech slash no-tech setup, where I only have a $7.50 shop light on the tank, and you could just set it up in a windowsill to get the algae and biofilm growing that these shrimp eat daily, you do things a little differently. And so while I do feed them to get them their essential minerals and nutrients, as well as the bio load in here so that all these babies can be born and grow out, because this is about 3 litters of shrimp that have been born in the last 4 months. So this tank has been set up for 4 months and 2 weeks. The shrimp have been in here 4 months exactly, and there is biofilm on everything because I used another piece of botanical hardscape. I used this piece of lotus pod, which is now completely fallen apart due to shrimp and snails eating it, as well as algae, fungi, and bacteria eating it. But that was all the beneficial bacteria to jumpstart the cycle of this tank. So I filled up the tank. You guys can watch the video. I'll link that in the description as well on how I set this up and when I stocked it and unboxed the shrimp pack. And then I just let the tank do its thing. Now I also decided to add a few things. So they give you moss in the starter pack from Aquatic Arts, which by the way, I get you a 15% discount on. anything you buy there if you use my code in the description. It changes from time to time, but my more recent videos, if you're watching this far in the future, will have the up-to-date code, and you can get that 15% discount, as well as prizes that we give away from time to time for anyone who uses any of my affiliate links, just to encourage using ethical and sustainable breeders and sources of shrimp and fish in the US that I believe in. So, back to the plants for a moment. It came with moss and it came with the cholla wood, but it didn't come with any plants. However, now you can buy a plant pack. So really all you need is the tank, a light or a windowsill, and substrate. Now the substrate, I have soft water, so I needed to add a few tablespoons of crushed coral. And I did that so that the shrimp would be able to build their exoskeletons with minerals and calcium. And same for the snails. Then if you have hard water, you might not need to add any calcium or crushed egg shells or whatever, however you'd like to add that calcium. You may be able to actually reduce the hardness of your water and increase the acidity by adding the botanicals and just adding more of them. So that will be something you'll have to research and figure out if you have hard or soft water. But if you have neutral water, you want a little bit of hardness and a little bit of botanicals so that the ecosystem is balanced, and then your shrimp will shed healthfully. Plus, they'll have all the great minerals to have beautiful shimmering shells like this gal here. Look at that. She's got that yellow, almost like metallic stripe down her back, plus the little pigment and iridophore cells, clusters that make her look spotted. She looks phenomenal, and even the young ones look really phenomenal here. So I started with the 8 of them. Within a month, they were all pregnant. A month after that, they had all given birth. Maybe 5 weeks after that. And now, just by providing them a lot of light so that there's a lot of algae growing in here, and they clean it up very quickly. And also a little bit of food. So 3 days a week I give them either the snowflakes or the bee pollen or Hikari shrimp bites. I give them some sort of pre-prepared shrimp food. ShrimpEnvy.com. I've got a 10% off code for them as well. So that's another option. There's a lot of options for how you can supplement their vitamins and minerals by feeding them. But for the most part, they bulk up on the algae and the bacteria and biofilms that are growing on your hardscape and on your botanicals, your wood, your rocks, and your leaves. So you're going to want to add a good amount of that, but make sure that the water chemistry doesn't get too acidic or too basic based on how you're changing it. So these guys grew out, and after the first 2 months, they had their babies, and their babies are now actually all growing up to be about this size, which is over an inch in some cases and about half an inch in the youngest cases. So what I do is I take 2/3 of this colony and I will sell it, or move it to a new aquarium and start a new shrimp colony. This is, again, only 2.5 gallons. This is a tiny setup taking up a tiny fraction of my rack of shrimp and fish right here. But we went from 8 to 50 in 4 months, and they're grown out already. And that's just by the regimen I just mentioned. Now, the fish are in here because when you feed quickly, oftentimes there's leftover waste. And if you're not gravel vacuuming, or you don't have a filter with flow that's kicking up the debris and moving it out of the main water column, like this tank with no filtration that is electrical powered, no filtration that's air powered, just filtration that's biologically growing on the surface area. So one, we want tons of surface area. All that fuzzy algae, great. That's tons of surface area. All the wood, that's great. All the leaves and moss, that's great. All the substrate, little round nooks and crannies, all of that has surface area for our good bacteria. Also, that will make sure that your tank's nitrogen cycle is nice and safe, and there's a good margin of error in case a few shrimp died or something happens. The whole tank isn't going to crash because those plants will be able to eat that up. Now, if you want to take it a step further, keep watching. If you've seen enough and you just want to try the shrimp in a 2.5 gallon and you just wanted the update, then thank you so much for watching. You can become a member for $1.99 and get a whole bunch of more content behind the scenes, including 16 to 20 extra episodes a month that end up on the Fishery podcast on all platforms now. Plus, you get all sorts of interesting stuff like articles on shrimp genetics, betta genetics, breeding, history, and anything else that I find fascinating in my daily life as a fish family YouTuber. So, let's continue on now about the baby fish that are in here. So, the baby fish are in here to control pests. That is so any planaria, here's a planaria right now, I'm glad we could find one. As much as I don't like these, if you only have a few, you're okay. Once you start seeing, half a dozen or a dozen of them at a time out during feeding, there's a good chance that they're going to be killing your baby shrimp. Now, you can treat them with chemicals, anti-worming chemicals, levamisol, or No Planaria is the name brand product, but I use fish. The fish eat their babies before they're even big enough to look like worms to the human eye. And I put these babies in right after the shrimp babies hatch. So they've been growing out at the same speed so that the fish are still small enough that they can't eat any of the shrimp. Now, if I suddenly had 2 or 3 female shrimp, like this pregnant gal here, decide that they were going to have babies, then I might need to rethink the fish. But right now, I've got 50 shrimp in a 2.5 gallon tank. That means I'm probably going to take 30 of them, and I am going to either sell them for $3 a piece wholesale, $2 a piece wholesale, or up to $5 to $8 retail to other local aquarium hobbyists, especially depending on their grade and quality. Now, for the fish, what I do is, again, the plants are important. They need hiding spots, and they want to eat all the little critters that are in this little balanced ecosystem. The algae, fueled by the light, as well as using plants and hardscape from an old tank that has all the little microorganisms in it. You can see my other videos as well where I show you under the microscope what's living in a 3-year-old tank versus a 3-month-old tank, and it is amazing. We can actually raise all these little fish and these shrimp, and the best part about raising the fish this way is, one, they protect the baby shrimp at this size, and I count them, and then I keep a close eye on it daily, and I make sure that the fish are in fact types of fish that eat hydra and planaria that cause problems, or scuds. And I also make sure that, say, the biggest one, like this little betta here, is not so big that they can start to eat even the smallest shrimp. And we still probably have another 3 to 4 weeks before that will happen, before they can do any harm. So they're going to continue to stay in here. But I want to show you my secret growth booster that I use. And that is a live culture from Aquatic Arts, also, just by chance. And I take a little Q-tip, or you can use your finger or a leaf, whatever you want to use. And this film on this oatmeal is not dry. It's actually hundreds of thousands of tiny little worms, less than a millimeter in length. And you can actually grow these and then feed all your fish with them. And you can actually see them growing on the side here. And get them off here. And then we will put it into the water column. And what that debris is will be cleaned up by the shrimp, because it's just a starchy leftover debris of oatmeal paste or oats, and shrimp will actually eat that. So it's all good, and it keeps the tank doing just fine. You don't want to put a ton in there. But now let's look really close and look what we start to see. Countless tiny little eel-like critters that are a step above infusoria, which is what the baby fish were eating, the fry were eating right away in this tank when I first put them in. They were too small to be eating flake food, and they needed live food as well. They need that hunting instinct. So they're in here, and I moved from infusoria, which just was naturally in the tank, and now you can see these bigger bettas here that are growing out. You can see there's the smallest shrimp, and the betta, I keep track of its mouth and their temperament, because you don't want them also ripping off legs or doing anything like that. But when they're young, they're much more interested in food that fits in their mouth, these little fish. So for about 2 months, you have kind of a sweet spot while you grow out a batch. Now also, I'm growing out snails too. So we've got the pink bodied snails, ram's horn snails. We also have Malaysian trumpet snails in here. There's one right there. And we also have the tiger print bodied ones with the opal background that's hiding right there. So I'm trying to get them to cross either with what we call the blue gene in the foot here of this brown one, and either have the bronze shell and the pink body, or the blue body and the shell. Those can sell for $1 to $5 a piece, and the shrimp, like I said, $2 or $3 wholesale is the best you're probably going to get for Neocaridina these days. But if you sell them to hobbyists, you know, you could get $5 to $7, $8 for a good quality shrimp. And that's only been 4 months that they've grown out from babies to this size. And now we have females getting ready to have more babies. And in about a month, they'll have those babies. And in about a month, my fish fry will be big enough that I will definitely have to move all of them, and that's why I've counted them, and hopefully they will have kept all the baby shrimp and adult shrimp safe from predators, eaten the extra food while the shrimp eat their extra food, and the snails eat their extra food, and I can take cuttings of the plants and the moss and get a couple extra bucks there as well, all with a system that I barely need to feed, and with a culture that you can keep going, and you can make new cultures of this and sell those too. So altogether, you could theoretically be making, say, $100 every couple of months easily out of this if you have a local market where you know to sell these things. And it's a 2.5 gallon tank. You could put it on your office desk as a fun project. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little update, how well everything's going in here. If you want to get this kind of setup, check out Aquatic Arts, and they've got all sorts of other stuff there too. And if you enjoy the channel, think about supporting it by being a member. It's only $1.99, and we always have a good time here learning about how to holistically take care of your fish tanks, your shrimp tanks, your invertebrates, your plants, and the whole ecosystem at large in your aquariums. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate the views and hitting that like button and all the jazz you guys know how to do. So thank you so much. I will talk to you guys next time on The Secret History of Living in Your Aquarium.